You're 55 years old, your body is breaking down, and you are staring down a federal disability system that denies the majority of applicants. The fear we hear most often is that the government will look at a lifetime of physical labor, point out that you can still technically sit in a chair, and demand you go find a desk job. For someone in their 30s, that total inability to work is the actual legal standard. But the moment you turn 50, you enter a new regulatory category where the burden of proof drops. The system acknowledges a very practical reality. Expecting a former roofer or warehouse worker in their 50s to pivot abruptly and start a brand new career in an office is unrealistic. After all, your body has already spent decades absorbing the heavy physical impact of a demanding manual labor career. The Social Security Administration addresses this reality through an official framework known as the Medical-Vocational Guidelines, almost universally called the GRID rules. These rules change the definition of what it means to be declared disabled. The GRID is an equation bypassing subjective opinions. You plug data into 4 slots. First, your age category and formal education. Third, your residual functional capacity, measuring physical exertion limits. Finally, your prior work experience. The SSA strictly limits this look back to 5 years. This means any specialized training or advanced jobs you held 6 or more years ago are officially removed from the calculation. The government can no longer use them to claim you have skills that transfer to a new industry. When your exact combination of age, education, physical limits, and recent work history aligns on a specific row, the GRID strips the examiner of their discretion and mandates a legally binding approval. This timeline illustrates the age thresholds. If restricted to sedentary work, turning 50 flips a claim to a directed approval. At 55, the system expands the approval zone even for light work capacity. By 60, the threshold drops again, making retraining an impossibility. Consider David, a 56-year-old warehouse worker in Virginia with a high school education. A back injury restricted him to sedentary work. Initially, the SSA rejected his claim, insisting he could find an easy sit-down job somewhere in the national economy. On appeal, his attorney pointed directly to Grid Rule 201.14. By mapping his age, education, and unskilled work history over the last 5 years against his sedentary physical limits, they won the case. The administrative law judge reversed the initial denial and awarded David full retroactive benefits. The GRID provides the legal leverage needed to override a subjective rejection. Knowing the rules exist doesn't guarantee victory. Bureaucratic mechanics can still destroy a qualified GRID case before it reaches a hearing. The most common trap involves the examiner setting your physical capacity too high. If they label you capable of medium work instead of light, you fall off the winning row of the GRID. You counter this by securing a detailed functional capacity statement from your treating physician. You need exact numbers, specific limits on how many pounds you can lift and how many minutes you can stand, rather than vague adjectives. The second error occurs when vocational experts invent transferable skills that don't exist, claiming your past job gave you administrative abilities you never used. To block this, audit your work history and strictly isolate the last 5 years. By enforcing the new 2024 cutoff, you prevent the government from pulling old skills into the argument. Finally, never assume an administrative law judge will organically check the GRID on your behalf. You must explicitly invoke the specific GRID rules by name during your appeal. Winning your benefits in your 50s relies on a specific administrative argument about the feasibility of starting over, rather than a medical endurance test to prove total incapacity.